Welcome to the 𝐬𝐸 podcast. This series focuses on elevating and inspiring women and girls into or to remain in the tech sector from the classroom to the boardroom. I'm 𝐜𝐞𝐢𝐥, founder and CEO of 𝐜𝐥𝐚𝐬𝐡 and host of the show. Thanks for joining us today on the 𝐬𝐸 podcast series. I'd like to introduce you to Seemin Suleri, who will be sharing her journey over the past 17 years within the tech sector, from software engineer to VP of engineering at Prima, and advice for employers looking to impact female representation within their tech teams. Seemin is an agent for change in a competitive digital world. Specialising in building and leading high-performance teams, she has enabled businesses to transform their cultural and technology landscape. She is a mum of two energetic young kids and is passionate about flexibility and inclusion in teams to allow people from all backgrounds to succeed. She has led a number of initiatives to increase the representation of women in software and is the co-founder and director of Women in Tech Dorset in the UK, which is a community for female digital talent with an aim of creating a collaborative and engaging space where women can learn from each other and get inspired. Great to have you on the podcast today, Seemin.
Oh, glad to be here.
Thank you very much. So let's just jump straight in, if that's okay with you, and start with our first question. And it would be great to understand what influenced you 17 years ago and before that, because I know you've got a strong education background as well, to pursue a career in tech.
I would say that tech was always something that I was passionate about. Now, going back all the way to school, it was one of those things. I grew up in Pakistan, so my education has been in Pakistan. And really, at school level, there were mainly two choices. You either chose biology or you chose tech. But I was not inclined towards biology at all. I was more a sciences person in terms of computing, physics, maths person. So that's what I chose and really started programming from a very young age and loved it and decided that that's where I wanted to be. I think over the years, when I started my career, just kind of also realized that there are many things that were missing in this world and the tech world. From the point of view of the way people were treated to the way different team members felt, depending on which background they came from. So I kind of kept going because always I found something that I could add, always something I could add. So it became a really motivating aspect for me. Every time I would take on a new job, I will just find out something that really wasn't being done and I could see it. It was blatantly obvious to me and perhaps not obvious to the people who were there. So I was able to make a mark wherever I was. So that's kind of how I followed on from a very early passion into school all the way into a career.
Perfect. And I think, you have had such a fantastic career, getting to a senior level as a VP of engineering. And I know you have a strong network and community in the space as well. But what do you think was one of the driving forces to get you to where you were today? Because I know that we've had conversations before and you've explained to me, some of the challenges that you face. But what do you think was that sole reason, that sole point that got you to that executive position that you sit in today?
I think that two main things come to mind. One thing is obviously learning, and I think that is something in common with a lot of people. But I do think that in tech careers, you need to be a strong learner or need to have a strong inclination towards learning and updating yourself all the time. The world around you changes at a higher pace than perhaps other fields. And if you don't keep on top of things, you would very quickly not be in touch with the latest trends and perhaps become irrelevant. So learning is a key aspect. The other thing I would say is that I am relentless in my pursuit of things. I'm a very ambitious and highly motivated person. I am motivated by achievement itself. So I think that it's kind of making no excuses for the ambition and just owning it, feeling that we want to go into that and fighting for it and never back down from a fight, really. So these are the things I think that really help going forward in the career and certainly help me.
Perfect. And I think you mentioned there about that relentless in pursuit for achievement. And, for women in particular, we can be pretty hard on ourselves on really striving for that success and that pursuit of achievement and that high ambition. So I don't know, have you got any advice that you would give to others as to, particularly a male dominated, but how do you ensure that you have that ambition and you can have that drive for the achievement without putting yourself at a disadvantage? And I think I shared an article recently about your uniqueness, and I think, that's probably one of your unique superpowers, is the fact that you can do this. But yeah, what advice would you give to others that are trying to find that pursuit for achievement or that fight for ambition, and how would they kind of harness that to help them get to where they might want to be in the future?
Yeah, I would say that certainly for me, one thing that really matters is to understand why you do what you do. So even if you want to achieve something, you need to ask yourself the question, what do you think it's going to give you? Why do you think you want to do that? So understanding your why. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Start With Why from Simon Sinek as well. I would recommend reading that book and really finding out and working on the why behind that ambition. I think once we kind of connect with the core reason of what keeps us going, that really helps, because I think that we really want to all achieve something in our lives. It's just about finding that one thing. Once we have found that, we will not lack the ambition to do something. Now, in the execution of that ambition, you might find that a lot of, and I know that women tend to be more self-critical. They tend to struggle with the imposter syndrome more as well, especially if there are a lot of people around them who are not like them or who don't look like them, or perhaps they might be working in a scenario which is not very inclusive. So it's easy to fall into the trap of, let's say, imposter syndrome or self-criticism or something like that. What tends to help, I found, is that, let's say I was going to participate in a very tough meeting or some presentation or public speaking or something like that, just as an example. And you feel like certain level of anxiety. But I heard this TED talk, which talks about the physiological aspects of anxiety and that you're feeling just before going on and presenting or making a big step. Physiological changes are the same. For example, your heart's rushing, but they're all kind of things that you feel when you're excited as well. And it's the mindset shift that is the most important key there. So whenever I feel like that, I'm thinking, oh, I'm super excited. So just change that mentality and use those, even the anxious moments, as feeling excited and to empower you. It's really, really how you change the narrative around what you're trying to do. And looking at your story as not a story of, let's say, somebody that things happen to, but somebody who wrote their own story. And it is about the perspective. And once you start creating your own story, then you will feel that things start to happen around you.
I like that. I like that. Taking the anxious feeling and turning it into an excitement feeling, because you're right, it is a mindset. And I think that would completely change your perspective. And yeah, one that I think I'm going to take away for myself in many different situations that you come across in life. So I do like that. If we looked at the tech industry, you've been in the tech industry now for 17 years. What do you think are some of the biggest changes that you've seen for women since the start of your career to today?
I would say a lot hasn't changed, unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, what I've seen. And I think that's not a very good thing, in a way that I think there is certainly awareness that women are trying to create. I think that businesses could be doing more. We have seen results where focused campaigns, when they are run, they have seen, for example, recruitment numbers go up in terms of the women who apply if focused attention is paid on the way jobs are advertised, right? So that's one thing. But I do think that businesses need to take a lot of responsibility of how they are attracting and retaining talent, and also what are they offering, and really catering to the inclusive spaces that they are aspiring to become. I also feel like there is a lot of lip service being paid. So I think there is more hype around, obviously, the D&I topic. However, when you look under the hood, there is very little being done, because a lot of the times it's just corporate marketing strategy. And I think that it does more harm than good. So for businesses, I would say, if you are running something, make sure that it is meaningful, make sure that it is backed up by actual practical initiatives that people can see. You might not be able to do much, but whatever you do, it might be an awareness campaign, it might be better benefits package, flexibility, or whatever you're doing. Make sure that all of those things matter. And instead of just using it as a marketing strategy, do actually do what you say. But in terms of women's participation overall, I think that the numbers are not enough. I would like to see a lot more. I think even in universities, the numbers are kind of flatline now. They were going up and now and I think, again, there's lots more that can be done. So unfortunately, not a lot has changed in that sense. I would also say over the 17 years, I felt that I didn't feel very supported. I was often the only one in a big team who was a woman, and I've seen even fewer women of color. That's even more of a minority there. And I think that what I am encouraging to do and what I try to do as well is to speak up as much as possible, to show your face out there, so that there might be another woman who is just starting her career and might feel inspired by some things that others have achieved. So as we smash through the glass ceilings, we need to take the shards away, as one of my friends says, so that the path is easier for others.
Perfect. And that saying, I remember you shared that with me when we last spoke, and I do love that. I think it's so true. We talk about glass ceilings, but the whole piece about clearing the shards, yeah, very much so for the women in tech movement and the work that needs to be done. I think some of the points that you mentioned there as well, particularly around the lip service and the D&I buzzwords. A lot of corporations and a lot of companies, they have the D&I checkbox is what I would say. And I think what you said there, it needs to be more than just a marketing strategy. It needs to be something that's meaningful with action. And, for those companies that are really making movements, showing those results and those best practices and what they're actually doing. And there are some great examples of that out there. But I just think, like you said, there's so much more that needs to be done. One, to inspire the girls at that grassroots level, getting into those tech-related education programs and degree courses, all the way through up to inspiring and supporting women on their journeys along the way as well. So thank you very much for sharing that. One of the questions I was going to go on to next was around, what do you feel is holding women back from taking a career in tech? Or, for many women, the numbers are quite high that by the age of 35, I think the number of leavers within the tech industry are quite high, and that could be for a number of reasons, be it if it's for childcare or just falling out of love with the industry. So I suppose it'd be great to hear from you. What do you think is holding women back from taking that career path in tech, or returning back to tech maybe after a career gap to have children, or for other reasons of stepping out, care responsibilities, or whatever it may be?
I think one of the things that really affects us is the fact that we don't have many examples of different scenarios in front of us, right? I mean, I would say once you're in the job, for example, and you decide to have kids and take a career break, you think, well, I'm in tech industry, now I'm out of touch. So much has happened. You might decide to take 2 years or 5 years out, whatever, however long. But tech moves like on a weekly basis. So you feel like, okay, now I'm so far out, there is no way in. But also another thing that comes in our way is that we haven't actually seen many women who have done that successfully and still made it. So I give usually the example that I've actually, in my personal example, I've taken time out on maternity leave with both my kids. And I took a year and a half in both cases, and I still was able to make it. However, I do think that the people who started with me, when I took the career break, obviously they were still carrying on, and therefore they were able to get to the next level or maybe promoted or something like that before me. But this is not a race. I am not comparing myself to anybody else. I'm on a journey, and I got to where I wanted to get to regardless. So it is a journey, and I think we need to focus internally on what we think is the right thing for us. It has been done. It can be done. It is absolutely possible. So I think that knowing that it is possible and it is done, and we still can be successful despite that. And I would say also that if you are a mom and you are working as an exec in a company as well, like the level of organization you need in your life is like next level. So I would say that there is a lot that women are able to, and we learn through being moms, right? So how many things we have to juggle. That's such an important skill you're learning while you're taking the time out. It's not a time out, as any mom would tell you. That's not a break. so so actually it is a full-time learning experience. If you take it like that, perhaps it's easier to return. And the other thing is, like in tech as well, you will always be a learner and a beginner at something. So even when you come back, you might be, let's say, a certain technology or a certain tech stack you might be proficient at. And you think, okay, now I've really fallen behind. However, there are new things coming up all the time. So be a beginner at something more interesting, and just start from there and then carry on. And I think that this is just about the self-belief, because it becomes easier once you've done it once. So the next time when I was taking a break, I didn't have any doubts about that. The other thing I would say is that flexibility matters a lot. Women, most of the time, let's be realistic, they are juggling a lot of responsibilities at home as well as at work. And it depends on your partner as well in life. However, let's just assume as a generalistic thing that women do most of the work in the house as well as having a full-time job, which basically means that they require a level of flexibility and appreciate a level of flexibility. This morning was the first introductory day for my daughter for school. I was there with her in that time, and my work allows me to have that flexibility to start late in the morning, take my daughter to school, and actually enjoy her first introduction to school. These kind of moments are very important, and the employers that want high functioning women to bring that to the table need to be also aware. I would say that as women, we should not shy away from requesting or actually even setting it out from the get-go about our expectations of flexibility, because life doesn't just happen outside of work. When people hire us, they hire the whole person, whatever we bring in. So whatever we've learned from our life experiences and whatever we've learned, we bring all of that to the table. And that means that we have our responsibilities as well. So flexibility is one of those things that perhaps is not really provided by a lot of employers, and therefore women tend to leave that. And the other thing is just a career break, because a lot of the people don't find the courage to come back. There are now a lot of businesses around. We work locally with STEM returners who actually train you and transition you into those kind of roles. And they work with a lot of women successfully doing just that. So finding a mentor in that space, making sure you're talking to people who are specializing in returning people would be another way of making sure that you're not just abandoning that career in tech.
Yeah. And I really like that you explain that journey. It is a journey. And I think sometimes, I know if I look back on my own career in the early days, it was a career and I didn't really see it as a journey until I had my first daughter. And I had that same feeling of us surpassed me. And at one point that was like, how can I get back? How can I get back to that level? And when I realised it was a journey and there was a long-term play and where I was looking to go, when I went off to have my son, it was a very different experience. And similar to you, I took a year out with both of them, but 2 very different years out, because I suppose the first time, you don't know what you don't know. And at the time, for my employer, there wasn't many women at my level that had done what I'd done. And I think for some of them, it was like, well, is it even possible? How can you return? And I think you do learn this, like you said, a whole skill set that you just figure out when you have children, and it just becomes this life learning lesson and then you can relay that back into your work life. I know I did as well. So it definitely helped me as an exec moving forward in the different jobs that I've had over the years. So there was so much there that you kind of gave in that answer. I think there was loads of little snippets that we could take away. And the STEM returners thing is something I'm starting to hear a lot from female executives. I spoke to a female CEO the other day, similar story to you. She works in tech and she had time out, I think 3.5 years to have her children. And a big thing in their business is that they have apprenticeships, but they're for people that have like 5 to 15 years industry experience and looking for that skill change or looking to return back into STEM. And I think there's probably a whole untapped population of exceptional talent out there that could easily start to come back into the workforce and really make some huge change. So thanks a lot for sharing. I think if you looked at your own career, what would be one of the largest challenges that stood out for you in your journey so far? And how did you overcome that particular obstacle at that time?
So I would say perhaps the biggest thing was to change the perception. And I think that this is not an easy thing. I completely relate to the women who really experience the same thing. Once you walk through the door, when I was just starting out my career as a software engineer, you're just treated like a little bit less intelligent than all of your male counterparts in an engineering role. And that is something that really used to bother me because a lot of the times I felt that projects and responsibilities were just handed out to people, and I was qualified and waiting and wanting to take responsibility. But I was just deemed a little bit, I don't know, not ready or something like that. And I felt that in certain circumstances that, they would rather give it to a male engineer who's just started on a graduate role than me who had, let's say, a couple of years experience in the industry at that time, but they would rather give it to that person than me. And I was upset by the injustice of it. But I told myself, well, life isn't fair, so how do we walk through that? And one of the things I would say is that opportunity can be found where people are not fulfilling responsibility. So this is something I heard somewhere, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna just find out who's not doing their job and who's not doing aspects of their job. So I found out that one of the main areas in our software engineering department was that nobody was looking after really the quality assurance side of things. Like, they were not interested in any of that. And I was working for an aerospace company, so we were heavily regulated. So that side could not be ignored, but that was because it was to deal with the regulators and stuff. Nobody wanted to do that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so I found this kind of niche where I could really shine. And ultimately, I became the one person in the whole department very quickly who was the point of contact for all of the quality assurance. And it's not bad to know a lot about the industry and the standards and all that. It gave me a lot of background and knowledge about the industry. And I started doing something nobody else wanted to do. I could actually excel in it. So I would say I turned that kind of the restriction into an opportunity, really. So my recommendation to anyone who is in those circumstances, start looking for things where work is not being done. Like, if, let's say, nobody's handing you any responsibility or giving you any interesting new projects to work on, there is something that someone is not doing in the department. There always is. Find that out and make it something you do, because you can really shine in that space. So just create those opportunities for yourself now, and that's it. Because once you get into the mindset that nothing can be in your way, because I feel like you just look at everything as an opportunity that way and thinking, okay, well, one door closed, but there are many other doors, or if not, I'm going to build my own door. And then I'm going to walk through that. So that's something I have learned over the years, and I would like to pass on.
I think that's a great tip there for people. And like you said, there's always something that someone doesn't like to do. And if you can get great at it and be expert at that, then, like you said, those doors that were previously closed become open, and I'm sure many other doors will come open with those doors as well along the way. So a great tip there, and a great bit of advice for those looking to level up or, take that next opportunity on board for themselves. If we flip it on the head now, obviously you are a tech executive, you're a VP of engineering, you've been at a senior level for a number of years, and then part of your role obviously is around hiring and bringing on new team members. We spoke about earlier about businesses needing to do more than just kind of have that corporate marketing strategy or just have that tick box to say, yes, D&I is important to us. But if you was to give some advice to any employers, hiring managers that are listening into this show today, who are truly looking to impact female representation or the retention of women within their teams, what's some of the advice or tips or proven things that you've tried and tested that could really help impact this?
So I think that in terms of that, I would say you need to be able to really rethink the way you're attracting talent. So it starts from scratch, talent attraction and getting people through the door is the first step. So the traditional ways you might have done are not going to work or not that successfully because people have not been very successful hiring women through those channels. So try and find out what your target client or candidate looks like and would like to hear and see. We found through our hiring strategy that women are much more open to an in-person conversation than a text conversation. So if you can have a face-to-face, early face-to-face, that has a huge impact. So make sure that you're building those connections directly. You are investing in the time and really taking an interest in what they bring to the table. And that's the talent attraction bit. Obviously, I think the usual things that are talked about is the way you format your job descriptions as well. You just make sure that you're checking it through all of the biases and stuff because women read it differently than men. And so that needs to be taken into account. But more importantly, I think for businesses, once you get people through the door, they seem to be like completely clueless about what to do with them. Now they want to build this diverse team, which looks great on paper, but that means there will be people who are bringing different ideas to the table, who have different backgrounds and different communication styles, and they're there for a reason. Because if you wanted similar sounding people with similar ideas, with everything the same, then innovation basically stops. However, the flip side of it is that once you have that diverse team and you have managed to bring them through the door, what are you doing about it? So the businesses need to work on their communication strategies, on their management plan to make sure that they are investing in training and developing these people as well. And also they need to form clear strategies on how decision making is going to happen. Because if you are getting all of, let's say, you wanted to get more women involved and they are involved on your board, but then it's like a little boys club who decides everything, there is no point. It's actually doing worse than it would if you if you wouldn't get them. So you have a bigger responsibility once you actually do recruit these people. And I would say that this is a journey again with the company that I'm working in, Prima. At the moment, we are doing this massive campaign of getting more women in technology roles. And there is a huge piece around our communication strategy and really trying to understand at different levels how we communicate better. And this is done through closed feedback loops, making sure that we are implementing and kind of like really learning through the process, because I don't think anybody has done the journey fully successfully for us to say, well, do it that way. And also with diversity, the challenge would be different for every company. So understand the challenge, understand your people, build those connections, and make sure that you know what to do with them once they're through the door, because you can't just leave them on their own with no support structure around them. You'll probably be doing them a disservice that way. So that would be my little advice on that.
Your top tips. And I think it's so true that, it starts at that attraction piece. And, sometimes people think, oh, okay, well, I've got them through the door. And like you said, once you've got the diverse representation that you're looking for through the door, a lot of companies then need to think about, well, what's next and how are we going to engage? And like you said, it's that ever learning process that things are going to have to change. The way the company's potentially always done things needs to be open to that change as well, because you might bring them in, but very soon those people that you bring in are just going to churn and just move straight back out. So I think there's some great tips there. And I'm sure if there is anybody who's looking to really impact representation, I'm sure if reach out to you on LinkedIn, would that be something that you would be open to just sharing some personal experiences if there was someone really passionate?
For sure. I'm always open to do that. And actually, I encourage people to do that. I have spoken to a number of women who are starting off their careers as well as on different levels in their journey. And I really find those conversations absolutely incredible. And I think also I have spoken to men as well, starting on their leadership journey and kind of really wanting to be aware of some of those things that they might not have because they have not worked with a lot of women, right? And so, but they want to be more aware. And I think that's brilliant. And yes, please reach out, because I'm more than happy to engage with people. And obviously I would also recommend going and look for our community that we're building in Women in Tech Dorset as well, because there are some online events that anybody can join. They're all free, and in-person events as well that you can join if you're down in Dorset. So it's kind of like trying to really build on the knowledge and support each other. And I'm really happy to be a part of anyone's journey. And if I can help in any way, that would be great.
Perfect. So we're coming to the end of the questions now. And I suppose my final question to you would be, if there was one piece of advice that you wish someone had gave to you at the beginning of your career, what would that have been?
I think that it would have been nice to know that it gets easier with time. I think this is something I always feel that you can't know when you're starting the career, right? Everything is hard in a sense that, interacting with people is difficult. It's a challenge. What you might be working on is a completely new world. You might have started in a new industry that you don't understand. Like as software engineers, we start in several industries. So I worked in finance, electronics manufacturing, aerospace, defense, you name it. And we're everywhere. So it might be overwhelming. However, just keep learning and keep those principles in mind, and it does get easier. But I completely know how it felt like when I first started. And I used to think, okay, is this journey ever going to get easier? But it does. And I think that I wish somebody had gone back and said, just keep going at it. It does get easier. So that's it.
I think that's a great bit of advice, and I think for anyone that's there struggling right now, it is going to get better for them. So thank you very much for sharing that, and also sharing loads of bits of wisdom and insights and experiences that you've had over your 17 years. So unless there's any final comments or anything else that you would like to share before we wrap up today?
No, I think I'm just really glad that I've had the opportunity through your network as well, through 𝐬𝐸, to share my thoughts. It's been great. And it's always nice to be connecting with people like yourselves who are making a mark and who's trying to make a difference. And I think all of these little bits, I really wish that when I was starting my career, some of these things were done then, but I'm pretty sure that someone like me would really benefit from that now. So thank you very much for all you do as well. And I think the more of us that are out there doing this, the better it is.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your time. And what I will do is, for anybody who's looking to connect with Seemin, I will share LinkedIn and other ways that you can get in contact. And we'll go from there. But thank you very much. And I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.